What happens when a young woman's dreams of Hollywood stardom turn into one of America's most chilling unsolved murders? Welcome to Sherlock Mode. The year was 1947, and Los Angeles was a city of dreams and shadows. The golden age of Hollywood painted the streets with hope, but beneath the glamour, darkness waited. Elizabeth Short was just 22 years old, a beautiful young woman from Boston with jet black hair and dreams bigger than the Massachusetts sky she left behind. Elizabeth had moved to California chasing the same dream that drew thousands of young women to the West Coast. She wanted to be an actress, to see her name in lights, to escape the ordinary life that seemed too small for her spirit. She would often wear black clothes that made her dark hair shine like silk, earning her admiring glances from strangers on the street. But Hollywood was not kind to dreamers without connections. Elizabeth worked as a waitress, sleeping in cheap hotel rooms for just $1 a night. Sometimes she had so little money that she would sleep in movie theaters, watching the same films over and over, dreaming that one day she would be on that screen. Her life had been marked by loss and disappointment. During World War II, she had fallen in love with Major Matthew Gordon Jr., a pilot in the Army Air Forces. They planned to marry, but fate had other plans. Matthew died in 1945 while recovering from injuries he received fighting in India. Elizabeth's heart was broken, but she kept moving forward. In her final months, Elizabeth lived a simple life in Los Angeles. She made friends easily with her warm smile and gentle nature. People remembered her as kind and hopeful, always talking about her dreams of making it big in pictures. She had no idea that someone was watching her, someone with very dark intentions. The last time anyone saw Elizabeth alive, she was at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. Hotel staff remembered seeing her using a payphone, but no one knew who she was calling or what was said. It was January 1947, and the winter air carried a chill that seemed to whisper of coming tragedy. Then, silence. Elizabeth Short vanished into the Los Angeles night like smoke disappearing into darkness. For days, no one knew where she was. Her friends grew worried, but missing people were not uncommon in a city where dreams often turned to dust. January 15, 1947, started like any other morning in the Leimert Park neighborhood. The sun was rising over Los Angeles, painting the sky in soft pastels. A young mother named Betty Berzinger was taking a peaceful walk with her 3-year-old daughter, enjoying the quiet morning air. As they walked along South Norton Avenue, something caught Betty's eye in a vacant lot. At first glance, it looked like someone had thrown away a broken mannequin. The pale figure lay in the weedy grass, and Betty almost walked past without a second thought. But something made her look again. The way the morning light fell across the figure, the position, the terrible stillness. Betty's heart began to race as the horrible truth became clear. This was not a mannequin. This was a human body, and it had been cut in half. Betty grabbed her daughter and ran to the nearest house, pounding on the door with shaking hands. Her voice trembled as she called the police, trying to find words for what she had seen. Within minutes, sirens wailed through the quiet neighborhood, and the vacant lot filled with officers who could hardly believe their eyes. What the police found was beyond anything they had ever seen. The body had been surgically cut in half at the waist using a technique called hemicorporectomy, a procedure developed during World War II. But this was just the beginning of the horror. The victim's face had been slashed from the corners of her mouth to her ears, creating what investigators called a Glasgow smile. Even more disturbing, there was no blood at the scene, not a single drop. The body had been completely drained of blood and scrubbed clean before being posed in the lot. Near the body, investigators found an empty cement bag and tire tracks, but the killer had been careful to leave few clues. The precision of the cuts told a chilling story. This was not a crime of passion or a random act of violence. Someone with medical knowledge had done this, someone who knew exactly how to use surgical tools. The killer had taken time, showing a level of planning that made investigators' blood run cold. Within hours, the FBI was called in to help identify the victim. Using a new technology called a sound photo machine, they sent fingerprints from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. In just 56 minutes, they had their answer. The victim was Elizabeth Short, the young woman who had come to Los Angeles with such hope in her heart. The news hit Los Angeles like a thunderbolt. Reporters swarmed the crime scene, and newspapers competed to create the most dramatic headlines. Because Elizabeth often wore black clothes and had dark hair, and because of a popular movie called The Black Dahlia, the press gave her a nickname that would echo through history. They called her the Black Dahlia. The investigation became the biggest manhunt in Los Angeles history. The police interviewed over 150 suspects, following every lead, no matter how small. They talked to doctors, butchers, and anyone with medical training. They investigated Elizabeth's friends, her past relationships, and every person she had met in her final weeks. Strange letters began arriving at the police station and newspapers. Some claimed to be from the killer, others from people who said they knew who did it. Over 60 people confessed to the murder, but every confession turned out to be false. The real killer remained silent, watching the chaos unfold from the shadows. As weeks turned to months, the case grew cold. The killer had been too careful, too smart. The lack of physical evidence and the surgical precision of the crime suggested someone with both medical knowledge and a deep understanding of how to avoid detection. The trail went dark, and Elizabeth Short's killer vanished like a ghost. But the story did not end there. Over the decades, new theories emerged. In the early 2000s, a former police detective named Steve Hodel made a shocking claim. He believed his own father, Dr. George Hill Hodel, was the Black Dahlia killer. Dr. George Hodel had been a prominent physician in Los Angeles in the 1940s. He had the medical knowledge to perform the surgical cuts found on Elizabeth's body. Steve Hodel discovered old recordings where his father allegedly said, "Suppose I did kill the Black Dahlia." They couldn't prove it now. Steve also found receipts showing his father had bought bags of cement just days before Elizabeth's murder, the same brand found at the crime scene. In 2013, investigators used a trained dog to search Dr. Hodel's former home. The dog detected the scent of human decomposition in the basement, even after all those years. A former police informant had written a letter saying Elizabeth was killed by a man with the initials GH. The handwriting and threatening letters sent after the murder looked similar to Dr. Hodel's writing. The evidence seemed to point in one direction, but it was still not enough for an arrest. The Los Angeles Deputy District Attorney said there was enough evidence to file charges if Dr. Hodel were still alive, but the doctor had died years earlier. The case remained officially unsolved, though many believed the mystery had finally been cracked. Today, nearly 80 years later, the Black Dahlia case continues to fascinate people around the world. Elizabeth Short's story has inspired books, movies, and countless investigations by amateur detectives who refuse to let her memory fade. Let us analyze this case like Sherlock Holmes would. First, we must consider the surgical precision. The killer clearly had medical training. This was not something an ordinary person could do. The hemicorporectomy technique was specialized knowledge, known mainly to doctors and surgeons. Second, the complete drainage of blood and cleaning of the body shows the killer had access to proper facilities. This crime happened somewhere with running water, surgical tools, and privacy. It was not a random attack, but a carefully planned murder. Third, the transportation of the body required a vehicle, which was not common in 1947 due to wartime rationing. This narrows the suspect pool to those wealthy enough to own a car, further supporting the theory of Dr. Hodel's involvement. The timing is also significant. Elizabeth disappeared in January 1947, and Dr. Hodel bought cement bags just days before her body was found. The cement bag at the crime scene matches the brand he purchased. This cannot be a coincidence. The recorded statement where Dr. Hodel allegedly confessed is perhaps the most damning evidence. Even if said in jest, the specific mention of the Black Dahlia case by someone with all the means and opportunity raises serious questions. The police informant's letter mentioning a killer with initials GH provides independent corroboration. Combined with the handwriting analysis and the cadaver dog's detection of human remains, a compelling case emerges against Dr. George Hill Hodel. However, we must also consider alternative theories. The killer could have been another doctor, perhaps one who knew Elizabeth personally. The surgical precision suggests medical training, but other professions like butchers or morticians might also possess such skills. The lack of physical evidence at the crime scene suggests a highly intelligent and methodical killer. This person understood forensic science and took great care to avoid leaving traces. This level of sophistication points to someone educated and possibly in a professional field. Elizabeth Short came to Los Angeles with dreams of stardom, but instead became the victim of one of America's most notorious unsolved murders. While the case may never be officially closed, the evidence strongly suggests that Dr. George Hill Hodel was responsible for her tragic death. Elizabeth's story reminds us that behind every mystery is a real person whose life was cut short, and she deserves to be remembered not just as the Black Dahlia, but as Elizabeth Short, a young woman who dreamed of a better life. If you enjoyed unraveling this mystery, like and subscribe to Sherlock Mode.